guests from Aspire 2025. Welcome to our series of interviews which are for the Smokefree Aotearoa Action Plan. And I'm delighted to be speaking today with Professor Eric Donny of the Wake Forest School of Medicine in North Carolina, USA. Eric's one of the leading international experts in denicotinized cigarettes and research on that area, so we're very privileged to have him speaking to us today. And he's going to be talking about the proposal within the action plan for Smokefree 2025 about a mandated policy for denicotinized cigarettes. So welcome, Eric. So can you start by telling me why nicotine is such an important component of cigarettes and other tobacco products?
Sure. I mean, there are thousands of compounds in cigarette smoke, but it's really just one that makes cigarettes addictive, and that's nicotine. Nicotine's easily absorbed from your lungs. It's quickly transported to the heart and then basically goes straight to your brain. And there's receptors that are so sensitive to nicotine that they're actually named after it, nicotinic cholinergic receptors. But when nicotine binds to those receptors, it changes how neurons work, and it changes how you process rewards, how you feel emotions, how you think, and other important functions. And it's that activity that seems to be key to making someone want more nicotine and to the symptoms somebody feels when they stop using nicotine.
Great, thank you. And would removing nicotine or virtually removing nicotine make smoked tobacco products less harmful?
The short answer is no. So the vast majority of harm caused by cigarettes is from things other than nicotine. Most of the things come from when you burn tobacco, byproducts of combustion. Nicotine has some effects on health. For example, it can make your heart beat faster. But these effects are likely to account for only a small portion of the death and disease from cigarettes or other tobacco products.
Okay, thank you. So how would removing nicotine from tobacco products help? How would it help people who smoke to quit?
So when people smoke cigarettes with very little nicotine in them, they find them less satisfying or less rewarding. And so for a while, they might still smoke them, perhaps because they've learned to like the feel of a cigarette in their hands or the taste of a cigarette. But those reasons for smoking just aren't as strong. And over time, people who have low nicotine cigarettes, they tend to smoke less. And participants in studies, they also report that they feel less addicted or dependent on a cigarette. So these effects make smokers more likely to try to quit. And for those that do try to quit, they make it more likely that they'll be successful. So in a sense, it's like giving people back some control over their choice to smoke or not.
Okay, thank you. And how do you think it would affect young people who are experimenting or thinking of experimenting with smoked tobacco products?
Sure. So kids are going to experiment with tobacco, and they do that because they have certain expectations. So they think that it might give them a buzz, or that it might help them control their weight, or maybe it helps them fit in with their friends. And they know that many of these effects are because of nicotine. So reducing nicotine is likely to make cigarettes less appealing in the first place, so the kids even try them. They won't expect to get a buzz, for example, or any that they think is caused by nicotine. And in fact, when we give young smokers low nicotine cigarettes, they tell us that they are less rewarding. And so even if young people try smoking, we would expect them to have fewer positive experiences and therefore be less likely to try them again. And I guess, and the last thing I'd say, maybe this is the most important thing, is there's little reason to believe that even if a young person decided to smoke for a little while and repeatedly used them, that they would become addicted or dependent and therefore unable or less likely to stop in the long run. And that's where most of the health consequences come from, is from chronic use.
Great. So on what you've said, it sounds like an excellent measure for helping achieve Smokefree 2025, in that it may prompt and support smokers to quit and reduce the chance of young people starting to smoke or becoming addicted. But are there any downsides to this measure? And if so, how could those be addressed?
Sure. I mean, we always have to think about the potential negative consequences of regulations like this or policies. So in this case, there's really two main ones that come up most often. And I don't think either one of them offset the potential benefits of reducing nicotine. So the first is the concern that many people have that people are going to smoke more. Sometimes people talk about this as compensatory smoking. And a lot of research has examined this issue because that would be a very detrimental effect. It would, in fact, potentially cause more harm than good. But the fact is there's simply no data to support the fact that people will smoke more. People do tend to compensate if you reduce nicotine a little bit, and they'll take larger puffs or smoke more cigarettes. But when nicotine is adequately reduced, like we're talking about a policy like this, there is no evidence that people compensate. And in fact, they do the opposite. They smoke fewer cigarettes, take smaller puffs, and they reduce the amount of toxicants that they're exposed to. So compensatory smoking is really not an issue, even though it's often raised as well. The second concern is that's often raised is about the illicit market. And a number of factors are going to impact the extent of any illicit market, both on the supply side, so things like how strong is border security, how easily can you get normal nicotine cigarettes into the market. And the other part is the demand side. And for me, it's really, we need to think about the demand side when we think about a policy like this. We want smokers who decide that they don't want to quit using nicotine to have appealing alternatives that are legally available to them, that are far less harmful. And I think that's why it's important for non-combustive products like vaping devices or medicinal nicotine to be widely available as they are in New Zealand. So I think the context in which we think about nicotine reduction is important. And I think New Zealand's well positioned to implement such a policy.
Great, thank you. So finally, final question, what advice would you offer to sort of policymakers in New Zealand as it considers introducing this mandated nicotine, denicotinized smoked tobacco policy?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be to be aggressive. So the emergence of safer products, safer alternatives to cigarettes, like e-cigarettes, sometimes lead to a complacency about the role of regulation. So we want to believe that if safer alternatives are available, that smokers will just migrate to those alternatives and that the free market will lead to the demand of the cigarette. And this may be true for some smokers, but it will be over a much longer period of time than we should accept. The longer it takes to reduce smoking rates, the more people that will suffer unnecessarily. And it's important to point out this burden of tobacco isn't equally distributed across the population. So a free market's going to leave many people behind, and they'll continue to suffer disproportionately from a product that's toxic and addictive. So my recommendation would be to pursue very aggressive policies if New Zealand is going to be successful in achieving their 2025 smoke-free goal. I think nicotine reduction is a perfect example of how regulation can be an accelerant for positive change.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Eric, and thank you for your time today and for your very clear responses and for giving us the benefits of your expertise and wisdom about this topic. It's really greatly appreciated. We hope that we will be in a position where we have implemented this measure and other measures in the Smokefree Aotearoa plan. And there are a series of other videos that we're conducting with other experts, which we encourage viewers to have a look at. So once again, Eric, thank you very much, and good luck to you with your research in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you.